Hi, I'm Nisha DeGaring, host of Good Things Utah, and I've been a longtime supporter of Todd's Belief Cast. I hope you find inspiration in the courageous stories shared by the amazing people Todd features on his show. The guests serve as shoulders for us to stand on, allowing us to see a little further and cultivate belief in oneself. Remember, you have the dignity and power to change. I encourage you to keep striving and believing in yourself. Enjoy today's podcast.
We are back, everybody. This is Todd Sylvester with the Todd Inspires Belief Cast. As always, and I know I say this every time, but it's so true. I love you guys. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for sharing these amazing stories from these amazing people that I have on. It truly is so inspiring. The feedback that we get is remarkable, honestly. And I can honestly say lives are being saved, and that's a lot. And to be able to say that blows my mind. Thanks to my sponsors that you just heard here a minute ago. Thank you for believing in me. That means the world. I couldn't do it without you. Today, we are in for a real treat. Today, we have Paul Hutchinson on the show. Paul, thanks for being here.
Thanks, Todd. Super excited to share with you and the audience.
Paul's on a tour right now, and I happen to be one of them, so I'm so grateful that he took the time to be on my show. And when you guys hear his story, you guys are going to know why. This is going to be something special. Today, he's a true warrior, Paul, honestly. He's a visionary entrepreneur, investor, philanthropist who walked away from $20 billion investment fund to dedicate his life to eradicating human trafficking. We could stop right there, and there's so much to talk about that. That's amazing, first of all. As the founder of the Child Liberation Foundation, Paul has led and supported over 70 undercover rescue missions, helping liberate more than 7,000 children from the darkest corners of the world. Wow. He also is the executive producer and primary investor of the critically acclaimed film Sound of Freedom and the author of the upcoming book, The Sound of Freedom, True Stories that Inspired the Film. Paul's mission, courage, and unwavering belief in the power of good have not only saved lives, they've inspired a global movement. So guys, we are in for a treat today, and let's welcome Paul to the show. So thank you for being here.
Thank you, Todd.
Yeah.
Thank you, Todd. Excited to share.
I'm already kind of getting a little emotional because, to think that we live in a world where kids are being sold, and I can't even wrap my mind around that. And so you walked away from this $20 billion investment fund to go dedicate your life to this. What led to that moment, Paul? Like, why did you do that?
Well, I was, I'm going to kind of set the stage.
Please.
10 years ago, I wasn't Paul Hutchinson. I was Paul effing Hutchinson, right? I had built a multi-billion-dollar company. I had a home that had, I had 10 bathrooms, 8 private suites, 3 kitchens, 7 fireplaces, a basketball court in my basement, right? I had massive parties with NBA players, NFL players, and half-dressed girls there, right? Yeah. And it was an energy that wasn't in line with my highest and best self.
Okay.
I was fortunate to not have grown up having a lot of the challenges that a lot of people do growing up.
Yeah.
It's sad. We'll go through some statistics today about how many people deal with abuse in the home as children. Yeah. And I was blessed to not have that, but my trauma was self-induced, right?
Yeah, right.
And it came from massive success. And I believe that a big part of my success financially was actually a decision I made in my early 20s. I had a mentor that said, Paul, there's certain things that you can do that are going to multiply your efforts. And one of them is charity work. Yeah. He said, the average person donates about 2% of their annual income to charity. He said, millionaires sadly donate less than 2%.
Wow.
But centimillionaires and billionaires, usually it's higher. He says it's like 10 or 20%. He says, in fact, a lot of these uber wealthy families have a principle that they are donating 10, 15, even 20% of what's coming in. He said, now here's the caveat. Don't wait until you're there. Start now.
Okay.
And I'm earning like $2,000 a month. I'm like, I remember thinking, you know what? This is why I want to be wealthy, is so that I can be charitable.
Yeah, right.
I never realized that I should be charitable so that I could be successful.
Wow.
Right? He said, you
Yeah.
can call it
I love
God,
that.
you can call it karma, you can call it the universal law of exchange, call it whatever you want to. There's a higher power very interested in us doing good.
Yeah.
And your efforts will be multiplied in all of your business pursuits. And I did. I started back then, and I started giving money to a guy on the side of the street or whoever.
Yeah.
I remember a friend saying, Paul, are you really making a difference? Is he using that for food? Is he using that for his addictions? And I remember saying, you know what? I don't know. And I can't judge.
Yeah.
I don't know if I wouldn't be that guy on the side of the street if I hadn't come from the upbringing I did.
Yeah, right.
Right. But at the
Love
same
that.
time, over the years, I recognized that I was probably contributing to a problem in just giving the money away in that situation. I don't know if he made a bunch of bad decisions in his life that led him to that place where he's now asking me for drug money. So I chose to start focusing my charitable focus on children, the truly innocent,
right.
a 9-year-old child in a position completely outside of any decisions that she made. That's where I wanted to focus. And so I started donating time and money to a lot of charities. I was on the Make-A-Wish board of directors for 7 years.
Oh, nice.
And I was the upcoming chairman for Make-A-Wish in this area when I got a phone call from our attorney general. And he said, Paul, he said, I know that you've donated a lot of money to child-related charities, and that's where your passion is. He said, I need to talk to you about something that's pretty dark. It's the fastest growing criminal enterprise in the world, and good people don't even know that it's happening. He's talking about human trafficking.
Yeah.
And I thought, slavery, that disappeared at the time of Abraham Lincoln, right?
Yeah, it's not happening.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He said no. He said there's actually more today than all 300 years of the transatlantic slave trade put together.
Jeez.
And he said, now let's talk about something even worse, child trafficking. And this was beyond my comprehension. I mean, why would somebody sell, let alone buy,
Right.
a child for anything, right? And he told me about some operators that were in Colombia at the time that identified some children that were being sold for the unthinkable. And they needed about $50,000 to rescue these 20 kids. And the government wouldn't give them the money because they couldn't prove that there was any Americans involved, blah, blah, blah. And so for me at the time, $10,000 with Make-A-Wish could send a little girl to Disneyland with her family, which is important. She's struggling with cancer.
Oh, yeah.
Right? $50,000 here, we could pull 20 kids out of hell and get them back to their families.
Wow,
There
right?
just wasn't a comparison. So I'm like, yeah, absolutely. I'll help with that.
Yeah.
And then a few weeks later, one of the operators called me. And he said, Paul, he said, I'm here in Cartagena. There's not just 20 children. There's more than 50 here. There's more than 100 children that are tied to similar trafficking rings in other areas of the country.
Right.
He said, we have a big plan that we can rescue all of these children on the same day at the same time. But I need your help. And, big ego me is like, well, how much do you need? Right?
Yeah, right.
And he said, I need you. Can you be in Colombia in 2 days?
Mm.
He said, we have to have somebody who can effectively negotiate a multi-million-dollar real estate transaction with the cartel, with the traffickers.
Whoa.
He said the head trafficker has a piece of property he wants to develop into a child brothel sex resort.
Okay.
He needs a few $1 million to build it out. He believes he can make tens of millions of dollars a year selling children to wealthy Americans. And he said, I can't teach my Navy SEALs how to negotiate a deal like this. They'll see through the fake money and the fake whatever.
Right.
He said, and I don't know of any successful real estate investors who have the training that you have. He said, if you're willing to be the bait, I'll change your whole life.
Wow. So I can't imagine, thinking of sitting in front of the cartel and you have to go do this. What was going through your mind when you hear this?
Well, at the time, wow. At the time, I was looking for purpose.
Yeah.
I thought that purpose would be another car, I had 2 helicopters. Who needs 2 helicopters, right?
Yeah,
All this
right.
crap, right? I was looking for purpose. And I immediately said, yeah, I'll be there. What do I wear? What do I do? He says, well, you know, dress as a wealthy. I was in Atlanta, Georgia at a conference with third generation billionaire families trying to convince them to invest in my real estate fund, right?
Right.
And so I said, well, I don't have time to go back home and change. If you need me in Colombia, like in 2 days, he said, well, just come and dress as a wealthy playboy investor. And I looked down, I've got a suit on that cost more than my first car, right? It was blue conservative on the outside, but it was bright pink on the inside, right? I have cufflinks that are like diamond studded $2,000 cufflinks and a $50,000 watch. I'm like, I think I got the outfit.
Yeah, I think I look like a playboy here. Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
So I hung up the phone. One of my other business partners was there, and about an hour later, John Pennington called me. Now, John and I are the co-founders of Bridge Loan Capital that became Bridge Investment Group, which is now almost $50 billion under management. And so John was the co-founder of the fund with me, and he called me up and he goes, Paul, I just heard about what you're planning to do. He said, have you thought this through? He said, you're set. You could sell out today, buy an island, be happy the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And I said, John, would I really be happy if I bought an island, if I bought another helicopter, if I bought another plane? Would that make me happy? I said, tell me this, if I was doing something else dangerous tomorrow, if I was climbing Everest, you and I would have the same conversation. And he said, yeah, we probably would.
Yeah.
I said, and when I'm 95 years old and I look back on my life and I say I climbed this mountain and I built this multi-billion-dollar company and I helped rescue this many children, which of them matters at all?
Yeah, it's an easy answer.
Yeah. He says, yeah, Paul, he says, if you've got the skill set, if you've got the back, if you've got the look and feel that they need to pull this off, I understand why you need to go. And so 2 days later, I'm face to face with the most evil people you could imagine.
Oh my gosh.
And Todd, what was interesting to me is that I thought that traffickers would have earrings in their noses and tattoos down their neck, and right? And the
a rough-looking crowd.
Yeah. So as I was expecting, the first trafficker I met was a businessman, clean cut, polo shirt, well spoken. The next I met was a beautiful woman running a fake modeling agency, and I realized over the next 10 years in leading or playing a key part in over 70 undercover child rescue missions, the common thread with the traffickers and the perpetrators was not earrings in their noses and tattoos on their necks. The common thread was arrogance and greed and lust.
Ooh.
And we'll talk about that later in this conversation about how
talk about that.
Every one of us needs to look in the mirror and say, okay, I'm not doing anything to harm a child, but how is arrogance, greed, and lust showing up in my life?
Wow.
And how is the ripple effects of those actions affecting the world around me?
Yeah. Dang. Those are some good questions to ask yourself, right?
Yeah. And so I'm sitting there at this table, and halfway through this meeting, one of the traffickers looks forward and he goes, Pablo, he goes, I have a gift for you. I said, really? What's your gift? And he hands me his phone. We're negotiating this thing they wanted me to invest in, right? And he shows me his phone, and there's a picture of an 11-year-old girl on his phone. He said, this is Princess. She's still a virgin. We just took delivery of some. She's my gift for you for this party. And it was the first time that I saw what I knew was a trafficked child. Selling her innocence to me. Now, I have 4 little sisters. And I remembered when each one of them were 11.
Yeah.
And how beautiful and innocent they were. Their dreams of being a nurse or a dancer or whatever they wanted to do growing up, right?
Wow.
And I see this little girl now. In the movie, my character is Pablo Delgado in The Sound of Freedom, right?
Yeah.
And is the wealthy billion-dollar fund manager who quits his job to rescue kids. And in the movie, I turned down the Homeland Security agent saying, I don't want to go. It's too dangerous. And it wasn't until he gave a picture to my driver of this 11-year-old girl that I changed my mind to go. In real life, I was already there.
Yeah.
I was face to face with these guys, but him showing me that picture changed everything for me.
I bet.
And it galvanized my commitment to ensure that child's safety. And, the plan was, I told him, listen, I'll fund your project under one condition. We're going to have a party in a couple weeks. I'm going to bring a bunch of my rich friends down. They're into this kind of thing. And if we're happy with you and you bringing all your existing inventory, quote unquote, if we're happy with that, then I'll consider funding your project, right? So I said, there's something he said. He showed me this picture, and there's something he said. I realized if we could get these kids out before they're ever abused in the first place, that would be a miracle, right? Yeah. And something he said made me realize he had more than her. I said, Fuego, I said, you have more. He called them 0 kilometer miles models, right? Yeah. I said, you have more of these 0 kilometers? He goes, oh yeah, I got 3 or 4 more. I said, you're bringing those to the party too, right? He goes, oh no. He says, they're too expensive. I said, too expensive. I'm already paying this guy $25,000. I'm paying him $500 per child for a minimum of 50 children just for 2 hours in the afternoon. He goes, Jefe, you already paid $25,000. He says, you want to F those other virgins? It's going to cost you maybe $2,000, maybe $5,000 for that little one. It's going to cost you maybe $10,000 more. Jeez. Now, Todd, at this point, no acting involved. I'm legitimately pissed.
Oh, I can,
right?
Yeah.
My ego self, my Paul F. and Hutchinson came through full force, right? He's talking about these kids like they're commodities. And I got my nice watch on, my cufflinks, and I put my hands on my chest and I said, you don't think I can afford an extra $10,000? He's like, oh no, Jefe, no. I said, I want every one of those 0 kilometers at my party. Wow. And they damn well better be clean when they get there. They're not for you, they're for me. You understand? You don't touch them. And it was just all this ego in his face. Now, the Navy SEAL that was standing behind me, he did a stroke and he walked around. He's, I need to check out the restaurant. Later when we were debriefing, he said, that little girl on that picture looked just like my daughter at home. He said, I almost unholstered my weapon and shot him right there, and then we would have lost the entire operation. Jeez. Right? So 2 weeks later, we have this quote-unquote party. Our team had met with the federal agents, the U.S. Embassy. They had provided a whole bunch of agents for us. And we're sitting there at this table negotiating this business deal with them. And they had brought 54 children. And suddenly one of the one of the traffickers stands up and he goes, Pablo, I have to show you the gifts that I brought you. And he goes in the house where the children are, and he's all of a sudden you could hear a few of the children crying. They were so upset. They were so concerned about meeting me and the other partiers that were there to defile them. And a few minutes later, he comes out and he has four virgins scared to death. 3 little girls, 1 little boy. This little boy was 11. They gave him cocaine that morning because he was so scared. I mean, pardon my French, but what kind of fucked up monster thinks that that's attractive?
Right.
Every cell in my body wanted to just hug these kids and say, you're going to be fine. I couldn't say that. I'm sitting there.
Yeah, you had to still play the part.
Yeah.
Because you're trying to save these kids.
Exactly. I've got the operators that were supposed to come and do the sting hadn't come yet. We were trying to delay the party, right? Geez. And so we had already given the signal for these guys to come, and they hadn't come yet. So we're like, and the traffickers are thinking it's time for the party to start. They take out the cocaine, they bring out the kids, and so I'm sitting there thinking, this can't happen. These kids are scared to death, and then they bring this little girl, the same one he showed me in the picture. Now, Todd, I'm sitting down on a chair, just like you and I are right now. And her standing up was no taller than I was sitting down. Jeez. And we were eye level. She had a shirt on that had a little kitty cat that was, painted on her shirt. She had braids, a typical 11-year-old child, right? And there was tear stains down her makeup face. They had dolled her up, and her makeup was all smeared because she had been crying.
Jeez.
And I made a commitment at that moment, looking into that child's eyes. I made a commitment to myself, to God, to that child, to children everywhere, that I would dedicate my life to eradicating that evil from the face of the earth. Half an hour later, after the agents finally had come and stormed the party and we all got arrested, the bad guys thought that we were, extradited to the U.S. to stand trial.
Yeah.
30 Child Protective Services people came in with the kids, and they started laughing and they started singing with the children just to calm them down.
Yeah.
And that sound of freedom was the most beautiful sound that I ever heard.
I bet.
Especially compared to the crying that we heard just half an hour before.
Yeah.
And I turned the operator with me. I says, I've spent my whole life making money, making rich people richer. I want to make a difference. I want to help. I says, I literally had a picture of a white Lamborghini Ventador that I was wanting to buy, right? And I says,
Yeah.
I'm not going to buy it. I want to give you the money instead. This is so much more important than all that crap.
Yeah.
And
what a perspective to be there face to face with it. I mean, I'm hearing it here and I'm feeling it. I mean, I'm getting emotional. You've painted a really vivid picture of this, but to be there face to face with that girl, I mean, I can't even imagine. And no wonder how it shifted in that moment. You're like, you know what? I am dedicating my life to this because you saw it face to face. Wow. That is amazing. Again, I'm just having a hard time wrapping my mind around this, and I know you get it because
I was there.
But to be able to do what you did, I mean, that took a lot of courage on your part. I mean, you're putting yourself into danger because if they sense that you are this guy that's going to rescue these kids, they'd probably kill you on the spot.
Yeah,
and
that was one of the safer missions of the next 10 years. There were some incredibly dangerous situations that we were in taking down some of the largest trafficking rings in the Caribbean, the largest trafficking rings in Mexico, the largest trafficking rings in Latin America, even in other places in Europe and Southeast Asia.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, man, there's so many questions I have. I guess one that really, for our listeners, can you paint a picture for us give us some statistics of what this looks like? Because I think, we just go about our lives here and everything's fine and we don't realize that this is going on.
Yeah.
Because I think our minds can't wrap our minds around it. So we kind of think, oh yeah, it happens here and there. But can you share some of that with us?
So many people think that this is something that happens in third world countries, that, this is why we don't go to Colombia. This is why we don't go to Thailand, right?
Yeah.
The truth is,
what's the truth?
If you walk out of your front porch in any affluent neighborhood in the United States and you look left and you look right, there's actually a very high chance that one of those homes is a dangerous place for children. Okay, let me tell you why I'm saying that. Now we're talking here about child trafficking. Child trafficking is, between 8 and 12 million children in the world that are being trafficked. However, the real thing that we need to be aware of is more than just the trafficking. People will leave the movie Sound of Freedom and they'll say, okay, I want to do something. I want to go help rescue kids. Well, the worst thing you can do is go down to Mexico and try to go undercover. You're going to get arrested. You're probably going to get shot.
Yeah.
Right? The best thing you can do is go home and hug your children. Parents are like, well, how is hugging my children going to make a difference? Well, the majority of children who are being trafficked, who are being taken to another place, don't come from a healthy nuclear family. They come from runaways, a broken foster care program, with that broken families, etc.
Yeah.
In addition to that, some really scary statistics are that over 40% of all women, 40% of women have been a victim, have admitted that they were a victim of sexual abuse, sexual violence at some time in their life. 1/4 of all women, it was as a child under the age of 18 years old. Now, those are just the ones who talk about it. The average age of somebody talking about that kind of abuse is 52 years old.
Yeah.
That's my age. I'm actually a little bit older now, 54. But it's if you have held on to that trauma your entire life. It's coming out in anxiety and depression,
sure.
addictions,
Yeah.
low self-esteem, anger issues, et cetera, et cetera. And now with men, it's a little bit lower. It's 1 in every 5 at some time in our life have admitted that those kind of things happen. However, 1/4 of them, it was under the age of 10 years old in their own homes. And so we need a relationship with our children where they can very comfortably come to you and say, "Hey, Dad, hey, Mom, I don't like it when you tell me to hug Uncle Harry because he touches me weird, and he tells me we should have secrets outside of you, or I don't like this babysitter because she's showing us pornography and says we should trust her more than you, or this friend's house. I don't like going to this friend's house because her brother took pictures of us while we're changing, and now he says he's going to send those all over the school unless we do other things." Or a more prominent thing today that parents need to be aware of, a child come to you and say, "Hey, Mom, I was chatting with a boy who was 12, and he sent me some pictures and told me to send him some pictures, and so I did. And now he says he wants more and more videos, or he's going to send them all over." It's likely that's not a 12-year-old boy. It's likely that's a 45-year-old man on the other side posing as a 12-year-old.
Right.
And this sextortion is happening in
You hear that a lot.
all the time.
Wow.
Yeah. And so and the sad thing is, when we pull out these kids out of these trafficking situations, we know what's been going on, so they can immediately get the help, the love, the healing that they need. And it's amazing how quickly they come back and can live a somewhat normal life, if you give them the right tools.
Yeah.
However, if you've got a 12-year-old, 13-year-old who was being abused by somebody she loved and trusted, a grandfather, an uncle, a neighbor, which over 90% of them are, and she buries it, then it is affecting her entire life in a really heavy negative way.
Absolutely.
And so these are the things that parents need to be aware of. Yes, you need to keep an eye on your kids, their social media, especially when you're traveling, because these perpetrators are identifying them in those ways. But it's important to know that over 90% of sexual abuse happens from a familial member, a family member, or somebody that the parents know. And so keeping your kids safe in that way is the best thing you can do to help prevent trafficking of your kids, even if. And a scary thing too, this is crazy, the majority of children who are being sold for sex sleep in their own beds at night, and their parents have no idea. Jeez. We had so many of these kids that were, wild. It was their babysitter or their aunt that was working with the traffickers that was, gave them drugs and whatnot and put them in this situation, and they're scared to death to ever say anything. It happens over and over again. And so again, that healthy, loving relationship with your kids where you are their 911 is the most important thing you can do.
Boy, and that takes a lot of effort from a parent, because, I work with clients who are in the similar situations where they've been abused and gone through all this. They've held it on their entire lives. They come to a place like this, and they finally, for the first time, open up. Their family has no clue. Yeah. And it's like, I've never shared it with anyone, And I love that you are really emphasizing that relationship piece. That is, I see it even just with drug addiction, in general. It's like there's just this split, if you will, between the parent and child. But if you can cultivate that and make that strong, like what you're saying, man, there's such safety in that.
Yeah.
Wow. That is amazing. Thank you for sharing that. Very well said, and very heart-wrenching at the same time,
Well, it's important that we all have solutions. You can't just leave a movie like Sound of Freedom and just be mad at the world from now on, right? You need solutions. And that's what, I've really tried to put a lot of hands-on things that parents can do in the book, The Sound of Freedom, that's coming out July 30th, July 29th. And the beginning of it is all about the making of an undercover operator and teaching everything from situational awareness to hand-to-hand combat to everything that was involved in keeping me and the team safe. Yeah. But then, the next 2 sections are about the rescues in Colombia, other rescues in Haiti, etc., But then the whole last section is all about what I call liberating humanity.
I want to take a moment to express my heartfelt gratitude to the incredible sponsors of the BeliefCast podcast. First, Craig from Craig Swap and Associates. If you need an attorney, he's your guy. Trustworthy, compassionate, always there when you need him most. Next, Wasatch Recovery, the greatest university on the planet, transforming lives one day at a time. Sandy from Minky Couture, the creative genius behind the most comfortable blanket you'll ever wrap yourself in. Comfort like no other. Special thanks to the award-winning pianist Paul Cardall for his beautiful music that brings inspiration to every episode.
It's not just the child liberation. It's not just helping the kids, but what do we as humanity need to do to conquer this and so many other things? You have to understand that over 70% of incarcerated felons admit that they were abused as children in their own homes. And so if there's that high of a percentage, and understanding that most of them don't ever even talk about it, it's probably closer to 100%.
Probably, because most people don't talk about it.
Yeah. And so this is the plague of our generation that we need to pay attention to, so that we can fix the problem permanently.
Wow. I love that. I do want to talk about what can we do, because I came across this quote. You probably have heard it. It's by Edmund Burke. It says, "All that is required for evil to prevail is for good men to do nothing."
Exactly. They say that all the time.
I'm sure. Yeah. And I think I'll get vulnerable here. I'll admit. I mean, I'll tell you, I want to help, but I don't know what do I do? Do I donate money to this cause? And it goes back, I think, to the relationship piece with your own children. And I have grandchildren now, and I think that's also important, that I have a strong relationship with them. But for those listening, if they're like, man, I really want to do something, obviously the relationship piece is number one. Is there other things that we can do?
People shy away from this because this is where the hard work comes. Okay,
right.
It's really the man in the mirror.
Yeah.
I love the story of the father who's sitting on a chair or on a couch, and he's reading his newspaper. And his little boy comes in and says, Daddy, let's play baseball. And he's like, oh, no, I'm busy. I'm reading the newspaper, right?
Yeah.
Comes back again, Daddy, please, let's go play baseball. And so this man turns the page of the newspaper, and he sees this map of the world. And he tears out that page, tears it up into little pieces of paper, throws it on the floor. He says, you know what? You need to learn your geography first. So he says, you go get some tape. You tape that every single country exactly where they're supposed to be. If you can figure all that out and tape it all together, I'll go play baseball with you. And he goes back to reading his newspaper. Well, about 5 minutes later, the little boy comes back, and the entire thing is taped together perfectly. And he says, what happened? Did your mom help you with that? Right. He goes, no. He turns it over. He says, there was a picture of a man on the other side. And I just put the man together, and the whole world came together.
Whoa, that's wild.
So there's the answer to the riddle right there. We sit here and think, okay, I want to help out here. I want to help out here. You need to identify what the man in the mirror needs to change.
Dang, I love that.
And once you do so, everything else changes. See, I have an example. I call it tension transfer. Let's just pretend like you go to work. You haven't fixed your shit yet. You're out of integrity. You're acting out of ego and anger issues and whatever, and you yell at one of your employees.
Yeah.
And that employee goes home and he takes it out on his wife, is impatient with her. And then the little boy comes home from school, and the mom starts yelling at him for something stupid. And the little boy then kicks the dog. Now, that dog took the brunt of your tension.
Yeah.
Right? That was tension transfer that went all the way through to that dog. Now let's pretend like what you didn't know is that man at your work, that employee, let's say that he was severely abused as a child. Mm-hmm. He never got the help and love that he needed. Yeah. Let's say that he got addicted to pornography and alcohol. Let's say that his pornography addiction escalated to the point where now, partially because of his childhood trauma, now he was viewing younger and younger victims on his pornography addiction. Yeah. Let's say that his wife just left him because of his alcohol and pornography together. And what you didn't know is that this was the weekend that he gets his 12-year-old daughter and her cousin. Okay. Now you, acting out of integrity and your anger issues, yelling at this guy, he goes home, gets drunk, combined with his other addictions,
Yeah.
now your attention transfer affected a child. So we all, every one of us have to look in the mirror
Yeah.
and say, just like I started here, how does arrogance and greed and lust and my inability to fix those issues in my life, even if it's just things like anxiety and depression and anger issues and addictions, all of those things, we need to all say, how has the ripple effect of my actions affected other people? And are those things affecting children? Now, here's some important things to understand.
Okay.
Somebody doesn't just grow up and at 45 years old decide, okay, I'm going to go to Colombia and go abuse some children, right?
Right.
It was likely already happening in his own home.
Yeah.
He was likely already addicted to things like pornography. And let me touch on that really quick on this part of the story.
Yeah, please.
Most men, and I run these retreats where we bring in, couples, and I split them apart and I sit the men down and I say, listen, at least 90% of you, whether you've admitted it to me or everybody else or not, at least 90% of you within the last 2 years have dealt with an addiction, a serious one, either pornography, alcohol, gambling, something like that.
Yeah.
Most of you, it's pornography. And most of you don't even tell your wife about it.
Yeah.
I said, most of you think, oh, it's a victimless crime, not affecting anybody. Understanding how that addiction works, how it's literally more addicting than cocaine and heroin in many cases.
Yeah, right.
And just like any hardcore addiction, some guys need something harder to have that same fix.
Yeah.
And for some of them, harder is a little bit more, grotesque. And everybody's like, oh, no, I don't get anything harder. Yeah, you do. You know why I know? Because it started out with looking at the Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue, and then it went to the Victoria's Secret stuff, and then it went to just some boobs and stuff, and then it went to videos, and then it went to, of course, it's progressing because it's insatiable, because it's an addiction, right? And so you don't tell me that this is something that you can control, because you haven't controlled it in the escalation so far. And for some guys, that escalation continues into BDSM or animal crap. I mean, it's horrible. Or some guys, it escalates into a little bit younger. And pretty soon they're fantasizing about things that they wouldn't have even thought was attractive 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And then they're acting out on these horrific fantasies. It's vitally important that we recognize everything in our life that is progressing in that kind of a negative direction. And for guys, you got to kick your pornography addiction now.
Yeah.
The very second that you take a woman from a divine feminine to an object,
Yeah.
you start going down a dark road.
For sure. You objectify the body parts. And
Yep. And that's what leads to this stuff. And
Yeah.
guys are like, oh, it's a victimless crime. No, it's not. It's that your subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between real and fantasy.
For sure.
And if you're fantasizing about cheating on your wife with that woman on the computer, your subconscious mind already thinks you're a cheater.
You're already doing it.
Right?
Yep.
You've already been there. And then Satan steps in and says, well, you've already done that. You might as well do something worse.
Yeah.
Right? And so it's so important that you fix those things
Yeah.
all the way through. And so hopefully nobody on this that's listening has ever abused a child, but it's so important that we take a look at everything in our life that is contributing in any way. Even things like pornography. We're like, those are consensual women on there. No, they're not. No. There's a huge percentage of them that are being trafficked.
Yeah.
Even guys, even if you think, okay, even the single guys that are like, okay, well, what if I do go to Costa Rica? What if I do go to even New York and LA, or even here in Utah, right? Where you go online, you can find, what used to be Backpage, and maybe now there's erotic sites or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, these girls are all independent. They're adults doing what the adults do. No, they're not. The majority of women who are working in prostitution in the United States are not independent. Over 90% of them are being controlled. They are being trafficked.
Jeez.
So you're contributing to trafficking if you're going down any of those roads whatsoever.
And if you had that in your forefront of your mind, you would probably think twice.
Absolutely.
To go, you know what? If I'm going to contribute to that, because I say I'm against that, therefore, I should do something different. It goes back to look at the man in the mirror.
Yeah.
Take care of you.
Exactly.
Right? Be the change, as we always hear, Gandhi's quote, be the change you want to see in the world. But it's so true, right?
Yeah.
And I love I don't know who said this, but how you do anything is how you do everything.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, right? You can't just say it's victimless crime over here, but at the same time, I'm a faithful person over here. It doesn't mix. But we try to make it work, right? We try to connect those worlds. No, it's, we try to justify it away. So now I can feel your passion, Paul, with this. Obviously, this means so much to you. You mentioned earlier about arrogance, greed, and lust. You were going to share a little bit more information. Do you mind sharing a little bit more? That was the common thread you were starting to see amongst these, these rescue missions you were going on with the people you were dealing with.
Absolutely. Well, and understand, for the first year and a half, almost 2 years of doing undercover, I was still Paul F. and Hutchinson, right?
I like that.
I was arrogance, greed, and sadly, that's what the traffickers were looking for.
Yeah.
They were looking for that kind of energy, right?
Yeah,
it's the Jeffrey Epsteins of the world. It's these guys with massive checkbooks and they say that power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. That's kind of where a lot of people end up in America.
Say that one more time. That was
power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Jeez.
Right? And sadly there are so many people who are billionaires or they're in political positions that see themselves as being in a place of absolute power. And you get to that place, arrogance, greed, and lust shows up front and center.
Yeah.
Right?
Wow.
And so it was about 2 years into my undercover work. And we were doing good. We were rescuing a lot of kids, but I was associating with guys in that work that were still filled with that same arrogance, greed, and lust that I was, right?
Yeah.
And we show up and the traffickers feel that energy and then they show us where the kids are. Boom, we do the bust. And sadly, that actually contributed to my negative behavior. Why? Because now I had the best panty dropper stories on the planet, right?
Yeah.
Now I can, my parties ended up being me even more of an alpha male, what I thought was valuable, right?
Yeah.
Well, a couple years into it, I had two of my operators that, we had a lot of our undercover guys we were losing because I had Green Berets with 300 missions in Afghanistan that he already had PTSD, right?
Yeah, right.
He comes one mission with me in Ecuador, is presented with a menu with children's faces and the money of how much it would cost for each thing we wanted them to do, and he's just done. He's like, his PTSD off. So we were blowing through operators. And I had two of my guys, Andy and Jimmy. Jimmy had done 13 missions with me. Andy had done 22. And they called me up and they said, Paul, do you trust us? I said, yeah, I literally trust you with my life.
Yeah.
I'm undercover. I'm in charge of talking. They're in charge of making sure I don't die.
Yeah.
Right?
Right. So I trust you.
Literally trust you with my life. And they said, you need to come to this healing retreat, this transformational experience. And I said, I don't need to heal. I'm Paul F. and Hutchinson. Everybody wants to be me. They're like, no, you do. You're on your second marriage, headed for a divorce. Your kids don't talk to you, and you're just not progressing in the way that I know that you want to in your life. And I debated back and forth, and this is somewhat of a controversial subject, but I'll just touch on it.
Yeah, please. I'm glad you are.
They said this doctor has identified ways to help people overcome anxiety, depression, PTSD, and addictions in a very short period of time, like a week or two. I says, well, that's BS. I says, I don't know if you know this, but my company that I sold in my early 20s, we had 50,000 people a month calling off an infomercial to get help with anxiety, depression, PTSD, addictions, childhood trauma. That's what we did. Yeah. I know this world, right?
Yeah, right.
I said, and it took us 12 weeks with a personal coach working, it's a lot of work to break free. You can't just do that in a little bit of time. And they gave me some things to do some research on. One of them was called what we call neuroplasticity. Mm-hmm. So when we're children, our brains are in this super impressionable state, neuroplasticity, right? Where we can learn two or three languages at the same, we can learn 2 or 3 languages at the same time at 3 or 4 years old, right? All of this information coming in. However, if something really negative happens while you're in that neuroplasticity, right? Your uncle touches you in a bad, whatever it is. Now, that gets buried in our subconscious mind. And the majority of our life, over 95% of our day-to-day activities are run by our subconscious mind. Even after 9 or 10 years old, when we don't have that hyper-neuroplasticity anymore, now it takes 21 days to implement a new habit, meaning get into that subconscious so that it can drive. But even when you're driving your car, you're not thinking about the brake and the gas, whatever, because you've done the same thing at least 21 days that your subconscious mind is taking over, right? Sadly, our subconscious mind, especially with these traumas as a child or whatever has gone through, it's driving, pushing your anxiety, your depression, your low self-esteem, your anger issues, your addictions. All of these things are being driven by things that sometimes we're not even aware of where they came from, right? In this state of neuroplasticity. Well, this doctor that these guys were talking about that was running this retreat was using some different types of plant medicine. Now, this is controversial, especially for guys that have, been involved in any kind of drugs or whatever else. Now, she was using things like psilocybin, ayahuasca, and ketamine, etc., in helping people change some of these deep-seated beliefs. Now, at this point, I grew up here in Utah. I grew up LDS. I left the church about 20 years ago. But even for me, no tea, no tobacco, no alcohol, anything that was mind altering in any way was off limits, right? And so I'm like, oh no, that's super bad, right? Those things were considered Schedule I drugs, so they're obviously really, really dangerous. Well, I read a report that by Johns Hopkins University, the proper use. Now, this is so important. I am not only am I not a fan of recreational use, I am adamantly against the recreational use of any of these substances. But with the proper use of things like psilocybin, there has never been a case of addiction, not one. Never been a case of overdose, not one. And when used with a trained facilitator, can help create some real change. And so I trusted these guys enough to go to this experience. Todd, this was the most beautiful, horrific experience of my entire life. Horrific. Now, we're not talking about little microdose. We're talking full ceremonial, guided meditation, come in with clear intentions, identifying your traumas, what you need to release. And in that experience, I felt in every cell of my being, I felt the pain that my children felt when I cheated on their mom.
Oh, boy.
As if I was them. It was like I had this Satan's foot on my chest pushing me down 600 miles inside the earth, and it was just so heavy and it was so dark. And then I felt that it was pure empathy in every way. I felt the joy of the children that we had helped to rescue, and as if I was them being reunited with their families. And then I felt the pain of the family that had just gotten broken up because some guy was at my party and slept with a cheerleader and his wife left him. And the ripple effect of my actions and my words in every area of my life became as if I was those people.
Ooh.
And it was so heavy. And it was so dark, and it was so transformative for me that I could no longer be Paul F. Hutchinson. I had to show up with pure integrity in everything of my life. And then I got out of that experience, and the facilitator was there and walking me through all of this stuff. And then I said to I had these Greek gods. I had Poseidon and Zeus, and I had Atlas holding the world on his shoulders. And at the time, I had 4,000 employees of my company. Right. And I said to the facilitator, I says, that those statues there, sometimes I feel like Atlas. I'm holding the world. This is ego me talking, right? Still, I'm holding the world on my shoulders. But see how God made me so strong. See the stomach of Atlas. My statue there. God made him so strongly. That's me. And I've got Zeus and Poseidon that are there protecting Atlas. And she quietly listened. And then she said, "Now, Paul," she said, I admire that you're seeing some of those traits of those Greek gods in your life." She said, "But what about?" She says, as well as I do, that those guys were mythological gods. She said, "What about your relationship with him?" She points at this statue of Jesus that I had. Mm-hmm. And I said, "Oh, I'm in this neuroplasticity state, Right. She said, "I said, oh, I I don't qualify for a relationship with him. And she said, well, why not? I said, well, when I left the church of my youth, my bishop told me that until I was rebaptized into that church, I wouldn't have the Spirit of God with me.
Wow.
She said, do you really think that that's true? I said, well, no, I try to do good. You know, I try to help people. And she said, why don't you work on that relationship? So, you know, here I'm on mushrooms. I can barely walk, right? And she helps me grab this statue off of there, and I sit on my beanbag for the next 2 hours, reestablishing a relationship with my brother that I hadn't had in many, many years. And those two experiences changed everything for me. And now you don't have to use, you know, substances to get there. You can get there in meditation. Breath work can help. A touch on meditation that I think is super valuable.
Sure.
You know, most of us pray. You know, we once in a while here and there, but you know, when we're taught to pray, it's very one-sided. It's praise, 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 sorry, 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 fix, fix, fix. Right? That's really what it is, right? That's what we're taught. It's praise, praise. Can you imagine having a relationship with somebody? You're trying to build this relationship with this girl you're dating, or what, you're even a business guy, right? And all you do is let's say you call up your new business partner. You're trying to create a relationship, and you're like, hey man, you're the most amazing guy. You're so amazing, and all these. You're so amazing. Oh, by the way, I am so sorry. I really screwed up here, and I really screwed up here. By the way, can you fix this? Because you fix this, and then you hang up. Can you imagine how, even your spouse, can you imagine having that relationship with your spouse? Hey, babe, hey, you're so gorgeous. Man, you're the sexiest woman alive. Hey, you know what? I really screwed up. I looked at this thing I shouldn't have. And by the way, can you fix this for me and then hang up? That's not a relationship, right? But that's how we pray. And so, you know, I now in our retreats, I one of the most valuable parts about it is teaching people how to turn off their chatter in their conscious mind, quiet their mind, get into that space of a pure peace. In fact, I listened to one of your podcasts where you that Navy SEAL, you told him to go sit on the bench out by that pond for half an hour. You know, one of the most valuable things we can do is put away our phone, put away all the chatter, and listen to that still small voice of truth that every single one of us were born with. That ability to tune in and receive that divine guidance rather than just having your prayers be one-sided and talking was a huge transformation for me. In fact, after that first transformational experience, I still did a bunch of undercover work, rescuing the kids, but I wasn't going in with that ego, arrogance, and greed and energy.
It wasn't Paul F. and Hutchinson at that point.
It wasn't. I went in, and I have countless stories after that of being able to just close my eyes and tune in to that voice of truth. And we weren't following logic and protocol. We were literally being led to where these children were, what we needed to do to keep our team safe, and rescued so many more children in following that energy rather than just relating to the traffickers with arrogance, greed, and lust.
Wow, that's so powerful. There's a beautiful quote by Ganilian Norris that says, within each of us there's a silence as vast as the universe, and when we tap into that, we remember who we are.
Yes.
And so I love that. And wow, I mean, such amazing information you're sharing. I love your passion, Paul. Like, honestly, like, we need to be more like that. And what really hit me, this whole thing's been wonderful, but what hit me the most was that story about the dad ripping up the world and saying, hey, you get that put together, I'll spend some time with you. And there was a man on the other side and taking care of you. Look yourself in the mirror and say, what do I need to do to be better? What can I do better today? How can I be a better father? How can I be a better friend, a better husband, spouse, whatever that is, right? Thank you for sharing that part. That hit me hard.
And it's how we show up in everything. What a beautiful story. My friend Jimmy Rex, who lives here in Utah.
Jimmy. Good old Jimmy.
I love Jimmy.
Him.
Absolutely love him.
Yeah.
And he was on one of our operations, and he came home and he was dating a new girl. And this girl was concerned. She said, Jimmy, I don't want you to go out and do those things anymore. I don't want you to go undercover. That's just way too dangerous. She said, can't they just do it? And he answered, we are the they. Right? We are the ones that step forward and do it. And he ended up putting together a men's group called We Are the They, based on that one conversation about how do we show up. We're not just letting the world go by. Just like you said earlier, this isn't the only thing required for evil to flourish is for good people to do nothing.
Yeah.
And so if we can show up with integrity in our relationships, if we can say, okay, what needs to be done in my family, in my community, in my world, what needs to be done to make this a better place?
Yeah.
How can I show up and be the they, not push that off on anybody else?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, We Are the They. It's a great group that Jimmy does. I've been a part of that. I spoke at one of his events and a few other things for him as well. So, yeah, Jimmy's the best. And again, it's great to rub shoulders with him and you and to get to know you better. I know you got this book coming out. It's on the 29th?
29th of July. It'll be out on Amazon and bookstores.
I can't wait.
It's called The Sound of Freedom.
Yeah.
And again, parents are going to get great information on what they can do to keep their kids safe. They'll get great information on what we individually can do to break these bonds, these habits, whatever it is that is putting us in a place where we're creating toxicity in the world.
Yeah.
That's all of us need to show up and do our part with the man in the mirror, the woman in the mirror.
Yeah, I love that. Congrats on that, by the way. That's going to be exciting. I can't wait to see that. I like to end usually with this question. If there's someone tuning into this episode right now, listening to you, Paul, and they are in a dark place, they are struggling, and they need help, what would you tell that one person right now?
Number one, if we all knew who we really were, we wouldn't struggle with anything. Wow. If we understood the infinite power that creates worlds, that flows through our veins, our divine connection with our eternal Creator who loves us unconditionally. And this is important. The Yeshua, people say saved by Jesus. That wasn't even his name. His name was Yeshua, right? Mm-hmm. So Yeshua, when he was asked, what are the greatest commandments? He answered, love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, mind, and strength. And the second is like unto it, like love thy neighbor as thyself. What people are missing, there's actually 3 loves there. Love God, love thy neighbor, love yourself.
Yeah, that's right? The one they miss.
It's the one they miss all the time. And it's impossible for us to love somebody else if we don't love ourselves. Recognizing that divine spark within each of us, listening to that guidance from God that we all have access to, and recognizing that we are loved unconditionally will help us to break free of that darkness. Light doesn't fight the darkness. Light dissipates the darkness.
Yeah, right.
You bring the light in the room and there's no fight. The light's just there. Same thing with love. That unconditional love. Yeah. Unconditional is the important thing. We go through life thinking that God is a judgmental, jealous, vengeful energy.
Umpire in the sky.
Exactly. Exactly. When we recognize that divine love. And I teach people in a meditation. One of the meditations that I teach is I take them in from their beta state to their alpha and into a theta state in this deep, deep meditation. And then in that meditative space, I do something that you call ho'oponopono. Okay, it's a Hawaiian term that basically it's the 4 parts of it are this: I'm sorry, I forgive you, I'm grateful for you, I love you. And here's how it works. I take him into this state and we bring in anything that needs to have cords that are cut. Whether this is cords with an addiction, cords with a negative experience with somebody in their childhood, their life, even cord cutting with a past version of themselves. Is what I had to do with Paul F. and Hutchinson, right? Is saying, so I have them bring that experience, that addiction, that person, whatever into their realm, where they're beautifully protected already in this meditative space. They read them their rights. Say, you know what, Uncle, when you did this to me, when you raped me, this is the pain that it caused, and this is the all of the things in my life that read them their rights. And then after saying all of that, with conviction, say the words, I forgive you. That forgiveness is not about your salvation. It's about you not holding on to that toxicity your entire life.
Yeah,
so saying, I forgive you.
Yeah.
I forgive you for that. And then saying the words, I'm sorry. And people are like, oh, I'm not sorry. I'm not sorry for what that guy did. No, I'm sorry for holding on to that negative energy my whole life. I'm sorry for anything that I have done to cause you pain. If you're cutting the cords with an addiction, I'm sorry for holding on to you for so long. I am grateful. I am grateful for the lessons that I learned from you, from this heartache, from these hard things in my life. I am grateful, and I now cut, liberate, and release all negative cords between me and you, and I do so in a spirit of love. I think of it going up into a pink cloud of light, etc. Right? Because you're not going to fight that negative energy with more negative toxicity. You're going to do it with love, and so that's what I would say: is recognizing what infinite love is, what unconditional love is, and then releasing everything that doesn't serve the highest and best version of you.
Wow. Man, drop the mic right there. Thank you. And I know, I'm touched by that. I'm sure those who are struggling tuning into this, because they're there and they needed to hear that today. So thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Todd.
If people want to reach out to you, Paul, and get to know what you're doing better, get in line to get this book.
Yes.
What's the best way for them to do that?
You can go to Liberating Humanity, liberatinghumanity.com.
Okay.
Or you can go all on my social media is all Liberating Humanity. I think my LinkedIn still is Paul Hutchinson, but everything else is just Liberating Humanity. You can go to soundoffreedombook.com if you can't remember Liberating Humanity. And it'll take you right into the Liberating Humanity website that you can get in line. You can pre-order the book. You can get information on how to keep your kids safe, all kinds of great things that are there on Liberating Humanity. If you want to help out with the foundation, you can go directly to childliberation.org.
Okay.
So childliberation.org or liberatinghumanity.com.
Love it. I'll put those in the show notes, the link, so they can go right to it. So it'll make it easy for them. But thanks for doing that. And I encourage people to reach out, get the book. And, again, we're in this together. Let's do this. Let's do our part. It starts with us looking in the mirror, get myself right.
Exactly.
And then, make sure we're making a difference in our community and especially into our homes. So thank you, Paul, for being on the show. Your passion is awesome. I love it.
Thank you, Todd.
I have chills. I got emotional. I know you're doing some great work out there, and I support you. And if there's anything I can do for you, let me know, because I'd love to be a part of what you do.
Thank you.
Okay. There you go, folks. Paul Hutchinson. Click on those links. See what he's doing. Thank you for tuning in. Share this with your family, your friends, your coworkers, your kids, whoever. Share this with your neighbors. The more we can get this out to people, the better. Paul's on this tour. He's making a difference, and I'm grateful to be a part of it. To be a part of what he's doing means the world to me. I want to look in the mirror and be able to say, hey, I'm doing my part. So love you guys. Again, thanks to my sponsors. I couldn't do this without you. Love you as well. Until next time. Thanks, Paul.
Thank you.